check your phone. Seriously. If you have it nearby, just open up your messages and scroll down a bit.
Oh, I already know where you're going with this.
Right. I can almost guarantee that if you look through your recent texts, you are going to find a message from an unknown number saying something like, hi, is this David?
Yeah, usually with a little smiley face at the end.
Exactly. Or maybe it's someone on WhatsApp or Telegram, pretending they just accidentally typed in the wrong number and they're just trying to make a friend.
It is so incredibly common. And, I mean, most people just roll their eyes, assume it's spam, and delete it without a second thought.
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
We just assume it is an annoying automated bot.
Right.
Like just some, I don't know, line of code or an AI program trying to fish for our information.
Yeah, maybe trying to steal some money or something.
Right, so you block the number and you move on with your day.
Yeah.
But what if I told you the finger that typed that message belongs to a living, breathing human being?
Which is just a chilling thought when you really think about it.
It is. And not only that, but that human being is currently locked inside a concrete compound, being held completely against their will.
It really fundamentally changes how you look at the digital world. I mean, we tend to think of these scams as purely technological nuisances, right? Like a byproduct of having a smartphone.
Yeah, it's just part of the modern internet.
Exactly. But the reality is that the vast majority of these seemingly automated messages are actually being sent by victims of human trafficking.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today's deep dive is taking us into something that sounds like, well, a dystopian sci-fi movie, but it is actually happening right now.
Very much right now.
We're going to pull back the curtain on a $64 billion global industry of cyber slavery, which is operating primarily out of these massive scam factories in Southeast Asia.
And we have a lot of ground to cover.
We do. We've got a stack of sources today, including these massive comprehensive reports from the UN and Amnesty International. Our mission is to understand how transnational gangs operate these fortress-like compounds, the mechanics of how they trap people, and explore the incredibly disturbing reasons why local authorities seem utterly incapable or unwilling to stop them.
To really grasp this, we have to start with the sheer scale of the operation, because we are not talking about, a handful of criminals operating out of a basement somewhere.
Right, the scale is massive.
The UN report breaks down some staggering numbers. They estimate there are at least 300,000 workers from 66 different countries currently trapped in these scam factories.
Wait, 300,000 people?
At least, yeah.
That is the population of a mid-sized city, just completely subjugated, sitting at desks. Where exactly is this happening? Because, I mean, you can't just hide a city's worth of people.
You can't. And honestly, they aren't really trying to hide. These operations are heavily concentrated in the Mekong region.
Okay, so where is that specifically?
So we are looking at Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, and Thailand.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and satellite imagery shows that roughly 3/4 of these facilities are situated right there in that corridor, with another major hotspot over in the Philippines.
But wait, how do you even get 300,000 people into these compounds? My initial thought when I hear human trafficking is the stereotype, kidnappings in dark alleys, people being snatched off the street into vans.
Right, the movie version.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How are transnational gangs managing logistics on this kind of level?
What's fascinating here and terrifying is how incredibly professionalized the recruitment process has become. They aren't snatching people off the street. These syndicates have essentially adopted Silicon Valley tech recruiting tactics.
But they've weaponized them.
Exactly. They weaponize them.
Because the sources mentioned they actually set up fake corporate HR departments. Like they put out these highly polished promotional videos showing bright, clean, modern workspaces.
Oh, they do. They conduct multi-stage Zoom interviews. They make applicants take aptitude tests to prove their typing speeds or their language skills.
That is insane. So it feels like a real corporate job.
Totally. They make the job offer look as legitimate as any corporate gig you'd find online. And here's where the technology comes in. They are actively hunting for vulnerability.
How so?
Well, they use artificial intelligence algorithms to scrape social media platforms, particularly Facebook.
Wait, how does an algorithm scrape for vulnerability? Like, what is it actually looking for?
It looks for behavioral data and keywords indicating desperation. So the AI scans public posts for people talking about, say, massive medical bills or recent layoff.
Oh, wow. Or a sudden financial crisis.
Right. It looks for GoFundMe pages or posts asking for mutual aid. The gangs program these bots to find people who are in a position where a lucrative overseas job offer isn't just an opportunity, it's a literal lifeline.
So they're basically headhunting people who just desperately need a break. But even so, if you get a professional-looking job offer, wouldn't you get suspicious when the plane ticket says you're flying into a region internationally known for scam factories? Like, how do they get people to willingly cross international borders?
That raises a really important question, and it brings us to one of the most chilling details from the UN report. The recruitment often doesn't start with a stranger from a fake HR department.
Then who does it start with?
It begins with someone the victim already knows and trusts.
Like a friend or a family member?
Yes. The gangs will actually force the people who are already trapped inside the compounds to reach out to their own social circles back home.
You're kidding.
No, they compel them to recruit new victims.
Wait, they force the victims to traffic their own friends?
They do. They will dangle financial promises, or more often, they just offer the false hope of the victim's own release. They'll say, bring us 3 new workers and we will let you go.
That is incredibly sinister. So, you get a message from an old friend saying, hey, I found this amazing data entry job in Thailand. They are paying great. The housing is covered. You should really apply.
And you trust your friend.
Right. You trust your friend. You have absolutely no idea your friend is essentially being held at gunpoint while typing that message.
And the UN report notes that nearly 80% of the victims interviewed said they had absolutely no prior knowledge that these scam factories even existed before they found themselves trapped in one.
80%. Wow.
Yeah, the trust is the ultimate trap.
Which brings us to the moment that trap snaps shut. Let's talk about what happens the absolute second these people arrive. Because they fly in, they picked up, they get to the compound, and the corporate facade drops instantly, right?
Instantly. The coercion begins the moment they walk through the gates. The very first mechanism of control is insurmountable debt.
Right, the debt trap.
Yeah. The legitimate contracts they thought they were signing are confiscated and replaced with these fake debt agreements.
The numbers and the sources are just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
There was a Bangladeshi victim who arrived and was immediately forced to sign an 18-month contract that required him to generate $200,000 in quote-unquote profit for the syndicate.
And look at the Thai victim mentioned in the reports. Their daily scam quota was set at $9,500 every single day.
Wait, pause. $9,500 a day.
Yeah.
Stop and do the math on that. How is a person chained to a desk in Laos tricking regular people on the internet out of almost 10 grand a day? Like, that math doesn't make sense to me, unless they are hacking bank accounts, which isn't what this is.
It sounds impossible until you understand the long game these scams play. They aren't just asking for $50 on an iTunes gift card.
Right.
They are forced to build incredibly elaborate, long-term relationships with their targets, often wealthy individuals in the West.
Oh, like the pig butchering scam.
Exactly. They might spend months texting someone, gaining their trust, maybe starting a fake romance, or positioning themselves as a cryptocurrency investment guru.
And then what?
They slowly convince the target to invest their life savings into a fake platform. So when that platform vanishes, the syndicate nets tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in a single day.
Wow.
Yeah, and that one big score covers that victim's quota for the week or the month.
So the pressure is just immense. And it isn't just about the money, is it? The level of microcontrol over every aspect of human existence inside these walls is terrifying.
It's absolute control.
The reports document workers facing financial fines for the most absurd things. Like, someone was fined for improperly carrying a keyboard.
Yeah, and the workdays stretch up to 19 hours, and during those 19 hours, your basic human autonomy is completely erased.
It is gone.
Right. There are strict rules where yawning, singing, speaking out of turn, or even crossing your legs can be explicitly forbidden and financially punished.
And I assume every fine just gets added to that insurmountable debt you owe the gang.
Exactly. It just keeps piling up.
These aren't just sweatshops. When we think of sweatshops, we think of exploiting labor for cheap goods. These are essentially maximum security prisons designed for digital extortion.
That's the best way to describe them.
How far does the punishment go if someone actually misses that massive daily quota?
The reality is extreme systematic violence. If a team of scammers underperforms, they are physically tortured in front of the rest of the workforce at morning roll calls.
Jesus.
Yeah, it serves as a brutal psychological warning to everyone else. The reports detail people being locked in water containers.
That is horrifying.
Victims are starved for weeks to the point where their bodies start to shut down and they lack the physical strength to even stand up. Some are thrown into solitary confinement in total darkness for days at a time.
And the sources noted that since 2024, the types of violence have escalated horribly.
They have. Both the UN and Amnesty reports document a severe recent spike in sexual violence, forced prostitution, and forced abortions within the compounds. It's really just a complete dismantling of a person's humanity.
There was also this detail about psychological torture that really stuck with me. If a victim isn't performing well, the gangs will extort their relatives back home.
Right. The video calls.
Yes, they do it via live video call. They force the family members to watch their loved one being beaten or abused live on screen until the family sends money.
It's just horrific. And, to truly understand the gravity of this, it helps to pull back from the statistics and look at a specific human life. The reports highlighted several individual cases, but one in particular stands out.
Winta.
Yeah.
Yeah, her story completely broke my heart. She was a 16-year-old girl from East Africa, and her mother had just passed away.
So she's already in a terrible spot.
Right. So she is grieving, she's highly vulnerable, and she's desperate to find work to support herself and her sister. And this man approaches them and offers jobs working on a cruise ship.
It's a classic, devastatingly effective lure. Because working on a cruise ship sounds plausible, it sounds exciting, and crucially, it perfectly explains the need for a passport and international travel.
So she takes the job. She's flown out, but obviously she doesn't end up on a cruise ship. She's trafficked through Sri Lanka, then smuggled into Myanmar, and eventually to Laos by these Chinese gangs.
And how long was she there?
She spent 7 years trapped in this system, from the time she was 16 until her early 20s. 7 years of her life just moving from compound to compound, forced to run these scams under the threat of torture.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Winta's story exposes a massive contradiction that we really have to address.
Which is?
Well, with abuses this severe, spanning over 7 years, and with compounds so massive, they literally show up on commercial satellite maps. I mean, why aren't the police busting down the doors?
That is exactly what I was screaming while reading this.
Yeah.
If you have a walled city full of enslaved people in the middle of a country, the local authorities have to know it exists.
They absolutely know.
But if you listen to the governments in these regions, like the Cambodian government, for instance, they claim they are cracking down hard. They put out these statements saying they have shut down over 250 facilities since they started taking action.
Yeah, but the official narrative is very different from the reality on the ground. Amnesty International actually decided to test that claim.
I love that they did that.
Me too. They identified 86 specific, verified scam facilities and tracked them across 2025 and 2026 to see what the government was actually doing.
And what did the data show?
Out of those 86 known factories, there was evidence of state intervention in only 24 of them.
Wait, only 24, so barely 25%. That is nowhere near the 250 facilities the government claimed to have shut down.
And it gets worse. Even in those 24 facilities where the state supposedly intervened, Amnesty found that in at least 3 of them, the operations and the human rights abuses just continued right under the authorities' noses after the so-called raid.
You're kidding.
No. Furthermore, there is zero transparency on who is actually being arrested.
Right, because they won't clarify if they're prosecuting the actual billionaire syndicate bosses.
Yeah.
Or just, throwing some low-level floor managers in jail for a photo op.
Exactly.
The corruption aspect is just undeniable. There is a horrifying anecdote from the Amnesty report that perfectly highlights how deeply rotten the system is. In one of these untouchable gated compounds, 8 different victims independently reported the exact same thing to investigators.
The coffee story.
Yes, the coffee. Local police would routinely visit the facility, but they weren't there to raid it or check on the workers. They were there to drink coffee with the compound managers.
Drink coffee and pick up the dead bodies of victims who had died from torture, starvation, or attempted escapes.
Imagine being a victim, right? Seeing a police officer in your building and realizing they are just there for a coffee break with your torturer.
It's unimaginable.
A Ghanaian victim in the report actually said he saw a police officer, ran up to him, and begged him for help in English. And the officer just completely ignored him, looked right through him, and walked past.
The authorities who are supposed to be dismantling these networks are, in many cases, actively embedded in them. They are basically acting as a protection racket.
Wow.
Victims reported that compound managers frequently receive advance warnings before any official raid takes place. The local cops call ahead, giving the gangs plenty of time to pack up the victims and shuttle them to a different facility in the dead of night.
Do the police ever actually intervene on their own? Or is it all just theater?
The analysis shows that genuine, proactive raids almost never happen. Action is typically only taken when international pressure becomes too great for the host country to ignore.
Like the incident with the South Korean student mentioned in the sources.
Exactly. A South Korean university student was trapped in one of these compounds and was brutally tortured to death by syndicate members.
That is so sad.
It really is. And that sparked a massive diplomatic crisis. When a powerful sovereign nation demands answers for the murder of one of their citizens on your soil, well, the local authorities are finally forced to make a real show of force. But it is entirely reactive.
And we aren't just talking about a few bad cops on the beat taking bribes to look the other way either. If you look at the research, it highlights how incredibly high up this goes. The United States has actually placed sanctions on high-level government officials for their ties to these syndicates.
We are talking about VIPs here. People like a major Cambodian government advisor and founder of a massive economic conglomerate.
Right.
He had $15 million in crypto confiscated by the U.S. before facing extradition. We're talking about influential senators and powerful businessmen. The corruption is institutionalized at the highest levels of government, which makes escaping almost impossible.
Which brings us to the next phase of this nightmare. And honestly, this might be the most bleak part of the entire deep dive.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
Because you have to ask, what happens when a victim actually does get out? Let's say a raid finally happens, or someone miraculously sneaks out of the compound. You would think that's the end of the story. They go to an embassy, they go home.
You would think that. But the UN report uses a very specific proverb to describe this phenomenon. They say, "Who escapes the tiger meets the crocodile."
The tiger being the transnational gang, and the crocodile being the host country's legal system.
Yes, because under international law, these people should be recognized as victims of severe human trafficking. They should be given shelter, trauma care, and repatriation. But instead, they are met with a completely hostile bureaucracy. They are criminalized.
The authorities look at a person who has been starved, beaten, and chained to a desk for years, and instead of helping them, they issue them massive financial fines for overstaying their tourist visas.
Which is just insane.
Visas that obviously expired while they were locked in a dungeon. And if they can't pay the fine, they were thrown into incredibly crowded, unsanitary deportation centers, or they are just dumped on the streets of cities like Phnom Penh to fend for themselves.
And as noted in the sources, African victims often face the harshest reality upon escape.
Why is that?
Because many of their home countries do not have local embassies established in these Southeast Asian nations.
Oh, so they have literally no diplomatic representation.
None. There is no one to advocate for them, no one to issue them temporary travel documents, and no one to arrange a flight home. They end up entirely stranded, homeless, traumatized, with no legal papers and no money, thousands of miles from home.
And here's where it gets really interesting, in the darkest way possible. Because even if you make it back to your home country, the nightmare still isn't over. And it all comes down to something the gangs do while the victims are still trapped. The sources call it the money mule trap.
To understand this, we need to look at the mechanics of global finance. These syndicates are generating billions of dollars in stolen crypto. But to actually use that money, they have to wash it.
Right, they can't just spend it.
No, global banking laws have strict know your customer, or KYC regulations. You can't just move millions of dollars anonymously anymore. Banks require verified identities.
So the gangs need clean identities to bypass the banking laws.
Precisely. So they force the victims at gunpoint to open bank accounts or crypto exchange accounts using their own real names, passports, and biometrics. The gangs then use those victim-held accounts to funnel and launder their massive cryptocurrency profits.
So the victim's real name is now officially hard-coded into an international money laundering operation.
Exactly. So when that victim finally escapes the physical torture of the compound and they somehow make it back home, what happens? They are hit with severe criminal charges for money laundering by their own government.
That is so unfair.
It is. The global financial system flags them. They face permanent bans from the banking system. They can never open a checking account. They can never get a mortgage. They can't even receive a direct deposit from a legitimate job. Their financial life is permanently destroyed.
Okay, wait, let me try to wrap my head around this. It's like surviving a years-long hostage situation. You're locked inside a bank vault by robbers, and then when the police finally open the door, instead of giving you a blanket and calling an ambulance,
They arrest you for bank robbery.
yes, they arrest you for trespassing and robbery because you were technically inside the vault when the money went missing. The legal system is literally punishing the prey for the sins of the predator.
Which is exactly why the UN report strongly advocates for governments to adopt a strict non-punishment principle. Governments worldwide really must stop prosecuting trafficking victims for financial crimes they were forced to commit under extreme duress.
The focus has to change.
Right. The legal focus has to shift entirely to dismantling the syndicates and rooting out the corrupt officials who shield them.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? It brings us right back to where we started. The next time your phone buzzes and you get a text about a missed appointment or asking if you are David Well, you will know exactly what is behind it.
It's not a bot.
No,
Yeah.
that is likely a real human being. Maybe someone just like Winta, trapped between the tiger of a transnational gang and the crocodile of a corrupt legal system, desperately trying to hit a daily quota just to survive the night.
It completely reframes how you interact with your phone. But before we wrap up, there is one final, incredibly provocative thought we really need to leave you with, something that builds on the mechanics of that $64 billion figure.
Okay, let's hear it.
We talked about how these syndicates launder their staggering profits through complex crypto wallets, but the sources know they also use what are called over-the-counter or OTC brokers.
What are those?
These are essentially private dealers who swap massive amounts of illicit cryptocurrency for clean, hard cash outside of the heavily regulated public exchanges.
Right, because eventually, billions of dollars in crypto has to become clean money they can actually spend on real estate and luxury goods.
Exactly. The final step of that entire laundering process is funneling that now clean cash back into regular, legitimate bank channels. So if tens of billions of dollars of blood money are quietly washing back into the global banking system every single year, we have to ask ourselves a very uncomfortable question.
And what's that?
How much of the everyday legitimate financial world that you and I rely on, our local banks, our retirement investment funds, the global real estate market, how much of that is currently being quietly propped up by the hidden profits of modern-day cyberslavery?